family history is passed down orally from our elders, but now family members are using technology to put this history into family books and conducting genealogy searches and DNA testing to add to the oral history that they've been told. We're so fortunate to have a member of our family as our own resident genealogist. His work is ongoing and he works tirelessly to update the Kelley Ancestry Register and Family Tree. This is a major undertaking and we have Dave Nesbutt to thank for that. Let's receive Dave as he presents an update on the valuable work that he does to ensure, to the extent possible, the accuracy of the Kelley Ancestry Register. Dave.
Thank you. There's a few things that I want to talk about tonight. The first is something that was near and dear to my mother's heart. The Kelley House in Appomattox, Virginia. How many of you know the Kelley House in Appomattox? Been there, visited? Anybody? This entire family has roots to this house. This house was built in 1853 in what's called Clover Hill, the original part of Appomattox, Virginia. It was built by my second great granduncle, I believe he would be called. His name was Lorenzo Kelley. He was the son of my third great grandfather, Neil Kelley. Neil Charles Kelley, and Radford Kelley, Old Man Bill's father, raised their children together in this area of Appomattox, Virginia. Neil and Radford spent over 10 years on about 30 acres of land raising their children, including Old Man Bill, Lorenzo, who built the Kelley House, and a number of other children, Martha and Christian Daniel Kelley, who moved with their mother down here to Texas in the 1860s. So that's how I relate to this Kelley family, through Neil Charles Kelley and through Bill's father. But I think it's been known in this family, a number of the names that were passed along were because the families were so intertwined. So you'll find that Neil's children's names, Lawrence, Lawson, some of these names passed down, Old Man Bill used in his children's name as well. This house was built in 1853. It stood during the Civil War and was at the surrender of Appomattox. It's very likely that Neil's widow, Elizabeth Kelley, known as the Widow Kelley, was sitting on this porch watching the surrender on April 9th, 1865. That's what it looked like in 1942 when the house was first discovered, when the Appomattox National Park was just purchasing land and acquiring it. They razed this house to the ground and rebuilt it back. This chart shows a little bit of how this family is related up above Bill Kelley. We talk a lot, of course, of the 10 houses of the Kelley family, but we are now investigating what happened to Bill in Virginia, who was Bill's wife or wives, who was Bill's father, Bill's grandfather, and that's how I relate to this family. So as you see, Radford Kelley was Bill's father, and Radford had 3 sisters that we know that all came down here to Texas and made their homes. There are at least 2 other sisters known by censuses that are unknown, we have yet to find. And there's a brother of Bill Kelley that's unknown, we've yet to find. Some of the technology today, as I'm going to talk about in a little bit, through DNA testing is going to help us to try to track some of this down. But my side of the family is Neil Charles Kelley, and my second great grandfather, Charles Oliver Kelley, is the youngest of the child. And if you were watching the photographs that flipped through here, he's the guy with the monster handlebar mustache. So I was lucky enough to be passed along through my parents a number of tintypes of Neil and many of the children. But just look at the names as you see here. Lawson, Lawrence, Lorenzo, Mary, and of course, we know what those children's names are on Bill's side. These are the tintypes that were passed down. Neil and Elizabeth were the parents of Lorenzo. Neil died in 1855, and Lorenzo built a house, I suspect, for his mother after Lorenzo died. My mom was really, this was an important part of the legacy of the Kelley family for her. In the late 1980s, early 1990s, the National Park Service made a mistake and decided that this was not really the Kelley House. And they renamed it the Jones Law Office for the last 22 years. And it really irked my mom. She didn't believe that that was the case, and she looked up records and tried to prove the case to no avail. After she passed, I picked up the family, and Keith and I had gotten in contact. I chased some more records down. I talked to the genealogists and the historians at Appomattox Courthouse, and we found they had originally thought that the lot number here, which was Lot 3, was misnamed as Lot 30, and they thought it was on a completely different part of the park. Well, we proved to them that this lot was actually the Kelley House, and this truly was still the Kelley House. And it's being rededicated this year as the Kelley House. As you can see, back in the 1980s, it was spelled with one E. When it's rededicated this year, it will be spelled with two E's, as we have signature documentation that the Kelleys, Neil and Radford, spelled it with two E's. The Kelley House sits in front of what's called Surrender Triangle. It's a pretty famous piece of land. It's a triangular piece of land that sits right in front of the Kelley House here. Back in the 1860s, during the Civil War, this was still owned by Lorenzo. Lorenzo bought this piece of land a couple of years after he built the house, and it was an apple orchard. During the surrender on April 9th, 1865, and then a couple days afterwards, this is where the Confederate soldiers stacked their arms. These roads were lined by Union soldiers, and the Confederates came in through here, stacked their arms, picked up their parole papers, and moved on. So pretty moving story, and there were definitely Kelleys watching this from that porch. There's a small cemetery behind that Kelley House if you ever get there. The family who bought the house out of the estate in the 1870s were a family called the Robinsons. And the Robinsons, they were a black family. He was a shoemaker. They raised 12 children in this house. It's a one-story house. I'll show you a picture on the inside. And many of the graves, we believe, are from the Robinsons, but we also suspect that there are Kelleys buried in the cemetery as well, although it's not been proven. That's a panoramic shot of the inside. It's essentially a one-room house. Fireplace on the first floor and on the second floor. Imagine raising 12 children in this house. Of course, when the Kelleys owned it, Widow Kelley, her mother, who ended up dying in 1861, lived there. A couple of the boys of her children were there before they went to war. This is a picture of the house. Surrender Triangle's on the right. This was the stagecoach road leading out. We'll talk a little bit about DNA tests. The DNA testing that has been done, a number of the family members who are here have taken DNA tests through Ancestry, both through Ancestry and a couple other places, and we've been able to use some of the results of DNA to find relatives that the family lore, was no longer available. We haven't been able to track. Some of the examples, I believe at least one of them is in this room. Princess, weren't you found through DNA testing?
Yes. Right here.
Princess descends directly through Katie Johnson, and Nell, Alzader, others here have done some really diligent work tracing Katie Johnson's parentage, finding Princess and finding other relatives of Katie. Through that, we now believe that we know who Katie's parents and perhaps who her grandparents are at this time. What we've been able to use this DNA testing is through what I call triangulation. So I'm way over here on this side of the Kelley house, Kelley tree, but I have relations up to the Kelley house. Keith on the other side has relations here. Others who have it through different houses. I have a cousin that I found who is a direct descendant Kelley on the white side, through Neil, through his son Lawson. Keith through the house of Lawson, through Bill Kelley. Princess Brown has shared her results through Katie. Jackie Dodson through the house of Eliza. Bobby Vern Kelley through the house of Herndon. Francine also through the house of Eliza. Stan, I think he's in the room. I didn't get a chance to see you, Stan. I know you're here. Has shared his results also through the house of Eliza. Nell has got results through the house of Lawson, and Alzader through Katie as well. So if you have results and you haven't shared it with one of the family members, what we're using these results are is to help us triangulate ideas of who our ancestors may be. One of my big projects right now is to try to figure out who Bill's mother was. We believe that we have gotten close to determining who Bill's mother is. We believe her surname was the name Christian. Christian is a big family in the Buckingham, Appomattox, Prince Edward County area of Virginia. And the first daughter of Radford, Bill's oldest sister, is named Martha Ann Christian Daniel Kelley. And DNA results show amongst a number of the Kellys who we've got results, show Christian as a common DNA name coming back as his. So we've traced it, I've traced it down to one or two families who I think the daughter may be of Bill's potential mother. We haven't confirmed that quite yet. There are a number of public and private trees on Ancestry if you want to learn more about how we all relate to each other. Some of them are private, some of them are public. I've listed them here. I have a tree up, it's private, but I'd be glad to give anyone access if they get contact with me. Nell has a great tree as public as well, named there. Bobby Kelley also does. Keith's tree is up, where Keith and I first crossed paths was through this tree. We learned about each other. Alzader's tree is up here, and then Princess Brown also has a tree who's been sharing with us. If anybody else has a tree on Ancestry and they haven't shared it or they haven't informed the family about it, let us know. Helps us again to triangulate, compare notes, try to be as accurate as possible with what we're doing with DNA. As I said, some of the discoveries, many of these confirmation of us as close cousins have come through DNA. It's incredible when you look at your DNA results and then you find that at least a dozen of the people in this room are on your DNA results showing up as first, second, third, fourth cousins, whatever the case may be. So we are definitely related, or at least DNA proves it. Family lore is not lying here. Again, as I mentioned, Katie Johnson's descendants have been proven and will continue to chase those. As I mentioned also, Bill Kelley's mother's surname. The other thing that we've been able to pretty definitely conclude is who Bill's grandfather was. So we know who Bill's father was, Radford Kelley. You've heard that name before. Radford's father and Neil's father, who would be my fourth great-grandfather, many of your fourth or fifth great-grandfather is a man called Daniel Kelley. He was raised in Prince Edward County. He married a lady named Martha Brooks and stayed in the Prince Edward County area all of his life. We have found DNA hits through cousins here into the Brooks family and in through the Kelley family to help us prove what we've concluded. We also know Daniel's father's name is William Kelley. We don't know all the details of the Williams Kelley. If you can imagine, between William Kelley and John Kelley, I think I have 400 William and John Kellys in my tree. So to try to figure out which one it is, it can be challenging. But we do know from records now that Daniel's father was William through a personal property tax record that we've discovered. So, of course, we, as mentioned earlier, we know Lawrence Kelley's roots now. But what else could it help us find? You know, we have an idea of where our lost cousin Lois Kelley's from, and we've traced some of those down to the 4th Ward of Houston. We haven't, I don't believe, made full contact with that family, but there may be opportunities for us to use DNA to help confirm some of Lois's family, and similarly Will's family. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Yeah, it was interesting because I follow and track Kelley's a lot, and I spend a lot of my free time fooling around with genealogy, but I was going back and looking at the original contact that Keith and I had together, and he had posted something out on a blog that he was looking for family of Radford Kelley, and I just maybe a week ago I went and saw that blog again. I was doing some searching again and reminded me of that first contact. He kind of talked about it today and being part of this family and what it suddenly opened up. It's remarkable, really. Keith talks about it, my influence to him, but it's quadrupled in the other direction. I mean, we've always been a Christian family, and but for the grace of God go I. When you start thinking about it from your ancestry standpoint and what your ancestors went through, and then you look at it from the other side, from the African American side, you think, oh my Lord, how can you not understand or sympathize with the plight of what this family has gone through? It humbles you to the core. So it's been a remarkable undertaking the last 5 years to be part of this group. It really has been.
Perfect. State your name and
I'm Dave Nesbutt. I am the son of Patricia Kelley. I am the grandson of John Oliver Kelley. I am the great-grandson of Edgar Rankin Kelley. I am the great-great-grandson of Charles Oliver Kelley. And I am the great-great-great-grandson of Neil Charles Kelley, who is the uncle of Old Man Bill Kelley.
wow, outstanding. So
Right.
just for 3 seconds, if you could just
You're not
move to the
making,
music.
you
Just-
can't be
just clap your
serious.
hands.
Now where is this going? Because my wife can't even get me to do this.